Stop being.
Hey everyone, Cyber PR Instagram Live. It is 2 o'clock on Tuesday. TT, get it? Alliteration. Hello, Mike Warner. Thank you for joining. Royal Brothers Band, new client at Cyber PR. Thank you so much for joining. Katie, so nice to see you. David, how's everything at the lake? Oh, it's so nice to see everyone. My guest today is someone that I am very, very excited to be bringing forward. She is the lovely Alexia Erlichman from a site I hope many of you are familiar with. And if you're not, you will be getting familiar with her today. It's Music Gorilla. And I'm going to bring her on right now. Alexia, it says unable to join. If you want to check your settings, we can try to remedy. In the meantime, while we are sorting this piece out, I would love to hear how everyone's social distancing is going. I myself recently was invited by a friend of mine to join the Deepak Chopra and Oprah 21-day meditation challenge, and I have felt an incredible shift since I started it 5 days ago. And it's been all about focusing on abundance and creating abundance in your life in all domains. And as the mom of a newborn, I've been kind of out of it for the last 3 months. Just keeping him alive has been my mostly full-time job. But this has been a really powerful course. And today's task is, I'm in day 5, it's to ask people to join me on the journey. And so for those of you who are not yet on my email list, if you're interested in taking a 21-day meditation challenge, it takes about 15 minutes a day, a little bit more with some journaling. Please let me know if you're interested right here in the comments, and I'll make sure that you join. Okay, gonna try to get Alexia on this call with us. And it still says unable to join. I have no idea how to fix that. If anyone is watching this and knows, that would be great. As you all know, I'm kind of new to Instagram Live, so this is a new mystery that I probably will just be here today not talking about music licensing if I cannot get Miss Alexia to join us. And what I might actually do is stop this video and Google how the hell do you get someone who is not showing up. Let's see, one more time. Is it working? I think it's working. Yes, it's
Hi.
working. There you are. I thought we'd have to stop the video and go to the Google.
You know what's so funny? I don't know why. I was trying to do it on my computer because it's obviously
Oh, no. No, Instagram hates computers.
Why?
I know. It's because
It's so much.
you're supposed to be doing this all the time.
Right? Because we all need to exercise our arms more.
Right, totally. And our duck face. Okay, we're here. Yay, Cyber PR Live. Special guest, Alexia with Music Gorilla. Let's get right into this, girl. I'm so excited that you are here. What? Sorry?
Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure is all mine. So please, for those of you who don't know, oh yay, Jesse from Please Me's here. I love seeing all my friends join us. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with Alexia and Music Gorilla, you and I met years ago because you were my lady in shining armor when it came to getting my clients hooked up at South by Southwest. So I first met this amazing woman because for how many years have you been running the Music Gorilla showcases at South by?
Oh my God, since 2004 was our first year, I think.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's the year I first met you. So Music Gorilla has notoriously been beating the system at South by Southwest for those artists that were shut out of official showcases. And she's been running unofficial showcases. And I mean, you've probably showcased thousands of bands.
Thousands of bands. And much to maybe to South by Southwest chagrin, but whatever.
Amazing.
We try to support the conference, and we just want people who don't have the opportunity to get the opportunity.
Totally. And you gave so many of our clients, both who were official showcases and not, the opportunity. So that's how we first met. But please do introduce yourself. I always hate like reading someone's bio. I think that's very awkward. And tell us about you, and tell us a little bit about Music Gorilla.
Sure. So my background is actually in film production. I grew up in New York. I graduated from NYU, and I started freelancing in production. So I was a production coordinator, and then I moved to Austin after 9/11. And I met someone who had this great idea for this company, really, who happens to be my husband. And he wanted to help artists get opportunities that they didn't have access to on their own. So, this was a while ago. This was 2003, 2004. It was a time when it wasn't so accessible to be online and to get the ears of record labels or things like that. And because of my background, I knew a lot of people in the industry, between the film industry, and then I went to the High School of Performing Arts. So I had people who were working in the music industry as musicians. And so we kind of pieced the whole thing together, and we started this platform to help artists get connected to the people, not so much to each other, not so much to fans, but really to industry, particularly into people who could help further their career. And of course, as the industry has changed, we've kind of adjusted our focus and adjusted our platform. But that's what we're doing today, is we're still getting artist exposure at label showcases, at our showcases like South by Southwest, which we were so sad that we had to cancel this year. But that's, it's par for the course. It's just crazy. And then we do film and TV submissions. We do commercial submissions, songwriting submissions. So for artists that are looking for material, things like that.
Amazing. Okay. So I've prepared a lot of questions for you, but before we get in, and I know, hey, Chris Hawley, Cyber PR, and Ryan from Among Criminals. I watched his live stream this morning.
Nice.
You guys. So I have a lot of questions, but I want to start with some general questions just about the platform and about how artists can get involved. And then, of course, we want to turn it over to everyone who is here joining us on this live. If you've got questions that are specifically related to film and television, how to get placed, how to get going with licensing, if it's something that you haven't explored yet. I know now that we're in the midst of COVID, I think staying on course for figuring out more ways of monetization is obviously in everyone's best interest. So I'm so happy that we're getting into it. So my first question for you has to do with, how does an independent artist who doesn't know much about licensing, I mean, I know a ton of artists when they're signing up to work with us at Cyber PR, a main area of interest is they want to get their music licensed. And they've researched, they know a little bit maybe about music libraries. What is the first step that an indie artist should take when they are beginning a licensing journey?
Well, I think the thing that is the most important thing, and it's so simple, but I think it often gets overlooked, is the quality of the recordings. So there are so many at-home recording products now, and some of them are, of course, better than others. And I'm not a technical person, so I don't want to speak to which ones are better than others. But I do see a big disparity in artists in the material that's ready to be placed. So one of the things that when people come to us and they're looking for material, they want something that's completely ready to go. They're not re-recording something for a movie. They're not re-recording something for a commercial. They need something they can literally take from here and put it here. And I think that's the biggest thing that that artists don't necessarily have is that the quality that's just ready to be placed. When it comes to submitting songs for another artist to record, that's obviously less important, you know, because they're going to re-record them anywhere. So it doesn't matter. But when it comes to film and TV, the recording has to be on point. It has to be, and also having instrumentals of your material and having clean versions, radio edits of your material is super important.
So like no cuss words or taking out long intros, or when you say clean edit, explain that.
A clean edit, so particularly taking out cuss words, so that if it's, you know, if it's for a commercial, if it's for television, that's not gonna fly. And what I find happens sometimes is that they'll ask for something that's a radio edit, which means, you know, no cussing, clean version, and people will still submit the material that has the cuss words in it, and you know, maybe they have a copy without, but people don't want to have to figure things out like that. You know what I mean? They just want to hear what they need and have it ready to go. So, and then, yeah, long intros, things like that. If they're asking for a minute of a song, pick, you know what I mean? Don't listen to it and think about things like that I find are very important.
Amazing. Okay. So you have your music ready. You have clean versions with no curse words. You've got your mixes and masters. It sounds really good.
Yes.
Now
so for us on our platform to get your music uploaded, right? So to put your music on the platform and do your bio and your pictures and links to your videos, whatever else you want to include, whatever you want people to see when they're looking for that stuff. And then as we offer opportunities, go ahead and submit to those opportunities. So what we do is we kind of get an influx of opportunities at particular points in the month. And we're actually going to be releasing new opportunities later today. But we send them out in newsletters, we post them on Twitter, we post them on Facebook. We want people to be aware that they're happening. And then the submission process would just be to make sure that what you're submitting is appropriate for what they're asking for.
Okay.
So in other words, you know, we have two membership levels. So we have a basic membership and then we have a pro membership. And basic membership is completely free, and it's an a la carte membership, if you will. So people can just pick and choose what they want to submit to. And the pro membership is a flat monthly fee, and it's unlimited submissions. So what we find sometimes happens is that the pro members a lot of the time will just submit to everything, even if it's not what they're looking for.
Yeah. And that's no good. Don't do this. Yeah. So this is if you're in my cyber PR music publicity lab right now, taking it for free, you probably have heard me say this. The same goes for when you're pitching. You don't just get a big list and pitch and vomit your stuff out there. You have to be really, really mindful and careful about your targets. And so, you know, if they want something that is like modern classical music and you're a hip hop artist, don't do it. Okay. So don't submit. Don't do that. Terrible idea.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's funny. I think in everyone's enthusiasm to like, maybe they'll like it. Maybe they'll make an exception. What's up, baby chemist? Yes, they send too many. And it's funny, I'm good friends with the delightful Lou Playa at Reverberation, and they also have a platform for submission. And he says, oh my God, like we will like put up a festival at a hard rock, you know, stage and be like, we want hard rock music, and they'll get like folk artists, and they're like, no. So yeah, okay, so you have to understand who you're, you know, what is being asked for. And aside from that, okay, so good music, clean edits, understand who you're going for.
Right.
What else is needed in preparing for getting your music licensed?
Patience. No. I mean, yes, you need patience,
Yeah.
but also the stuff, things like having music copyrighted, things like, having it registered in the appropriate pros, if that's the route that you're going, things like that. Especially, if you're placing your stuff in an indie film, maybe it matters. It doesn't matter about the copywriting. Your music has to be copyrighted no matter what. But not maybe ready to join a pro yet. That can be negotiated in terms of an independent film, but you want that stuff in place so that if you get these bigger projects, or if someone really, if you get a theme song for a television show, you want that stuff in place.
Okay, so just to clarify, what she's saying when she says PRO, PRO, Performing Rights Organization, ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, for those of our Canadian friends and international friends, your place that is your collection agency. And you have to make sure your music is registered. If you have had a work for hire, or if you collaborated with someone on the track, make sure that it's very clear, because the last thing, and you can speak to this, and I've seen this happen, that you want to have happen is you get a big placement, you get a nice little check coming, and then someone comes out of the woodwork to argue that they deserve a certain amount if it wasn't predetermined.
For sure. And then in regards to that, it happens all the time that if there are too many, if the copyright is not in place and the publishing is not in place, and then, the music supervisor is like, oh my God, this is the track, this is the one I want, and they can't get everything cleared, they're not going to spend time waiting for you to get your ducks in a row. They're going to move on to the next track. Like, nobody has that kind of patience. This is not, we're not talking about an artist that's they're not placing Lady Gaga. They're, the stuff needs to be in place, because otherwise they're just
they'll move on. They're going to move on. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So ULove has a really good question. Is registering your music to your PRO the same as copywriting?
No. I mean, copywriting is copywriting.
So for those of you that have, I mean, this is like, took me years to understand a lot of these nuances. I'm going to have a very dear friend of mine who's a lawyer, who hopefully will say yes to an IG Live with me, and we will be diving into all of that stuff. But no, it is definitely not the same. And I recommend, for those of you that have not copyrighted your music, there's a ton of information and a lot of really good websites that explain and break down exactly how to do that. So question, okay, so now we've got good music. It's cleanly edited. It sounds wonderful. We've got our ducks in a row. We've registered with our PRO. We are understanding that we're not just vomiting music out to anyone that wants to take a submission. What else do I need to know as far as getting my music licensed?
So I think the general aspect of this is that it does require tenacity, and it does require patience. And just because you think your song is perfect, it doesn't necessarily mean that the music supervisor is going to hear it that way, or that there are a lot of people down that road, right? So it has to get past the initial entry, the initial barrier to entry, and then it's the music supervisor, and then it's a producer maybe, or it's the director, and then and then they have to place it with the scene and make sure that in terms of editing it works. So there are a lot of steps, and so people, I think, get frustrated with licensing because it's difficult and it doesn't happen easily. And I think one of the biggest things is that you give up too quickly. It gets frustrating, and I understand that. Like, I understand that you don't want to just keep trying to do something when something seems difficult or seems impossible. But I think that's the biggest thing with licensing, because what tends to happen with licensing is that you get one placement and it leads to another and it leads to another. It's sort of like working in the film industry. Like, when I was working in the industry, I never didn't have a job, and I worked freelance. So it was like, because I got in with a particular group of producers, you work with them on one project, and if you're good, they're going to hire you for the next project, even if it's 3 months down the road. And I think licensing has a very similar feel to it. It has a very cyclical feel to it. So once you start to get placement and you start to get in those groups, then it comes more easily. You also tend to understand more of what they're looking for and kind of write that way and record that way, and that becomes more of a focus.
Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit. That's really fascinating to me. So do you recommend, I mean, obviously you own a platform that helps artists connect directly to people that are looking for music, and we pay you a fee and you help submit us to the correct choices. For someone that's looking to do as much as possible in licensing land, what are some other, okay, so you have to understand, do you give access? Like once let's say I have something, it gets placed, do you give me access to that production team or that music supervisor? Like how you do? Okay.
We're not representatives. We're a platform, right? Okay. So once the music supervisor comes to us and says, we want to place this track, then we put that music supervisor directly in touch with that artist. Okay. We'll help them, like if they need legal representation, if they need referrals, things like that. Of course, we'll help with that. But we're not negotiating. We're not taking any percentages of deals. We're not, that's not our role in this. Our role in this is to get opportunities for artists and to provide the platform for them to submit the opportunities and for the industry members to find the music that they need for their projects.
Amazing.
So we don't do the negotiating. We're not involved in that way.
Cool. Okay. So it's really, I'm going to add something that you probably also need, which is to understand this world a lot. Because if you're going to go into a negotiation with a busy person that's dealing with production, right, you probably have to, you have to understand what you're doing. Okay, what is her name and URL? Someone's asking. This is Alexia Erlichman from Music Gorilla. If you go to the Cyber PR page, there's a whole section on Instagram Lives. You can see all my guests. I have a new person who is amazing joining us every Tuesday at 2:00. Thank you for asking. All right, so understanding and developing relationships is key. What would be some other avenues for developing relationships with film and TV music supervisors outside of using Music Gorilla directly?
So this is a tough question because I feel like I did a lot of cold calling in my life. And I never want to discourage someone from doing that. But at the same time, you have to know your audience, right? So I don't dissuade people from reaching out to music supervisors, but what I do dissuade is doing that without having done a ton of research on that person and their projects and what kind of music they look for and where they usually get it, because otherwise it's almost disrespectful to not put in that effort and just expect someone to reach out to you or to help you without having put in that time and effort and research. So if you're contacting a music supervisor for Grey's Anatomy, make sure you know the style of music that Grey's Anatomy uses, because it is specific. It's not, if you watch shows like that and you listen to the soundtracks, you'll start to realize there's a very similar feel to the music that they select. Even different entirely, it has a very similar vibe. It connotes a very similar response from the audience. And I think it's only fair if you're going to reach out to a music supervisor that you know their style or you know what they're looking for, that you've done work before you do it.
Right. And that's akin to, again, for those of you who don't know me, Ariel, cyberprmusic.com, free publicity class. The first entire section, this is what I talk about. It's preparing to understand your audience. And this is so key. I represent musicians. They call us all the time. We do publicity. And in our intake questionnaire, we have a question where we say, what music blog would you like to be featured on? And what often comes back, like 95% of the time, is musicians say to me, I don't read music blogs, which is fine. You've hired me to do that. Skip that question.
Yeah.
But if you are going to, and that's, you know, you're hiring me to do your PR, so that's cool. But it's always interesting. You have to understand, I can't, you know, just put music on a random music blog. Again, I have to understand the editor, what they like, what their style is, how often they put new music up on their blog, etc. The same goes for music supervision world. So this is key and crucial and important. And if you don't watch the show, if you've never watched the show, you look like a jerk if you're pitching I mean, it's funny, someone just last week on my email list sent me a beautiful letter. Please consider this artist for your podcast. And then it went on and on and on and on about the music that this artist created. And I was like, okay, this person has clearly never listened to my podcast. I don't feature music. I talk to people in the music industry. And I wrote back and said, I don't feature musicians. Has she done something for the industry? Like, oh my God, what are you doing? And she wrote back, no, but if you ever do want to, you know, feature musicians and music, it's like, oh my God. So yes, this is so important in anything that you do as an artist or a musician. Know your audience. So if you guys want to start answering, firing questions over for Alexia to answer, I still have questions for you, but here's a good one. How do you find out the style that the supervisor is looking for? What are the resources for that? Do you recommend IMDb?
So I think IMDb is, it's obviously a good resource, but I wouldn't necessarily want to go about it that way, because it's, I think it would be very difficult unless you're like, I want my music placed on this show, and that's who the music supervisor that you're looking for. In other words, if you're working sort of backwards, like if you're watching a TV show and you're like, oh my God, this is exactly my sound, who is the music supervisor for this project, then IMDb is great. The other way around is that there are lists of music supervisors and the projects that they've worked on, and the movies that they've done, things like that. And, you know, you can look through those, see what you're.
And where do I find these magical lists? Are they online? Are they available for purchase?
They're available for purchase. Someone's name that just went right out of my head. I know you know him too. He does a really good list. He's out in LA. I'm going to find it.
Okay. We're going to find that list.
Okay. So there are resources, and I'm sure that there are other good ones, but I happen to know the guy.
Katie Gabaraldi, I've never known how to pronounce your name. I've known you for years. Sorry, Katie. Music Registry has the lists. That's the one. There you go. Thank you. But again, you're buying a list. It's just like buying a list. Like the Indie Bible is a list of, you know, they have like a ton of labels and a ton of Spotify playlisters, and they have a ton of music journalists. You have to, of course, be really careful. Oh, also Rich Esra. Yes.
Rich Esra does the Music Registry. That's the name that I was not, but yes, Rich Esra. Thank you.
And he also, Rich has an amazing newsletter, which if you're not on his newsletter, I highly recommend you sign up, and it's really, really good. Yeah. Please me, my friend Jessie says, do you see more, it's going fast. Do you see more placements with unreleased versus released songs, and does it matter?
I think as long as, you know, depends the level that you're at, but in the level of musician that we're dealing with, where it's, you know, it's really mostly indie musicians or musicians signed to smaller independent labels, I don't think it matters, because unless you're getting a super wide release and the song's been everywhere and they want a song that hasn't been anywhere, it's not going to be affected.
Okay, so in other words, most music supervisors are totally fine if the music's been out. It's funny, an artist that I represented 20 years ago recently just posted that a song that we worked on 20 years ago just got placed in a TV show, and it was like the perfect placement, and it was so amazing to hear that song again. So
Yeah.
I would second that. You Love Entertainment says, so do you recommend your services for music producers that have industry-ready music, copyrights, and RIN?
Yeah. I mean, anybody can use our platform. So as long as you have the rights to the material that you're submitting, you're fine. In other words, you can't, like, if it's a producer and you don't have the rights that you need from the artist to submit the material, then that can't be submitted. But as long as you have the rights to the material, you can submit anything, and even if you're not the artist, even if you're the producer.
Great. A lot of artists ask me about music libraries, and I know that I've done a lot of research on them, and seem to be a mind-numbing amount of them out there.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what is a music library and how does an artist go about working with one?
Yeah, I have. Music libraries are really tough because there are so many. Like, I don't even, like, people ask me about music libraries and they're like, which one should I join? And I don't even like to do that because a lot of the time they're dependent on the style of music that you do. So like some music libraries are just for loops, or just for compositions, or just for electronic music. And so I hate to just recommend one even, but I do think that there are very legitimate music libraries out there that can be helpful. I know a lot of them, the way that they work is, so if your music gets accepted in the library, the new thing now is they'll do a 50-50 split. In my mind, they still shouldn't be keeping any publishing going forward. That's a very negative thing, and something to watch out for. But most of the ones that I'm familiar with will do a 50-50 split on placements. So your music has to be accepted into the library, and then once it's accepted into the library, then if it's placed, and they're shopping it actively for you. So that's a little bit of a difference between them and us. We are posting submissions, and the artist is submitting to those submissions. Music libraries, because of the way that they get paid, they're shopping. They're sort of a catch-all for material. So it works a little bit differently. And I don't say that I think music libraries have their place in an artist's arsenal. But a lot of research on the music library that you're thinking about joining.
So I have a question just about that. So let's say I find a music library that I like and I decide to go with it. If I do that, and then can I take some of those tracks and send them through Music Gorilla or through other services, or give them to other reps?
So that's an exclusivity issue. We are completely non-exclusive. So you could submit to us and submit the same track on any platform you want, in any library that you want. So depending on the library, you're going to find exclusivity. And some libraries like to retitle things and do things to make it so that it's like slightly different. And I also would walk a fine line with that. But as far as we're concerned, it's non-exclusive. Some libraries are exclusive and some are non. So that's just something that you would want to be aware of in case that's your situation and you want to submit to other projects.
Okay. Kim Bingham has a great question. Once I have a significant placement, which she does, she sold a song to Disney for a TV theme song. Can I leverage that for other placements?
So if you have a placement like that, which first of all is fantastic, so congratulations, that's an awesome placement. If you have a placement like that, the thing that you want to do is really stay in touch with that music supervisor and just, not harass them, but check in regularly, and probably that means, for music supervisor, that means probably once a month-ish, because you have to think about how projects last and how long they're going to be on a project. So I think that's a really good way. Also, because you now have a relationship with that music supervisor or with that producer, whoever came to you for the track, you want to ask them if they feel like they know someone who would also be a good fit for your music. Because it's a very, very small community, and especially in Los Angeles and Hollywood and, you know, in feature films. So the majority of music supervisors, A, know each other, and B, are constantly working on new projects. Mm-hmm. So staying in touch with that music supervisor, that's great, because you want to build that relationship. And like I said, just in a way, it's like, can I help you with anything? If I just released a new track and I'd love for you to just, you know, to listen to it. Let me know what you think. So with putting stuff out there without asking for, you know, you're not asking for them to write a paragraph on your new track, but my point is that you want to keep the relationship flowing. And then at some point it becomes appropriate to say, you know, okay, I understand if this is not necessarily the kind of thing you're looking for, but do you know anybody that's working on anything that it might be appropriate for? That's a really good way to use that relationship and to keep it moving forward.
Amazing. And would you recommend, this is something I've read about, would you recommend putting together a monthly newsletter specifically for music supervisors, and making a targeted list, like this is what I'm up to, and only sending it to a specific set of people in the industry? Or do you recommend don't do that, go person to person, one very personalized email for your touches?
I think if you have a relationship with those people, then by all means, it's a good way to keep them up to date on what you're doing. If that's like the cold call, if that's like the initial thing that you're doing, it's difficult because, you know, people are so, their inboxes are flooded right now. Right. So I just don't already have that relationship. It's going to be a difficult way for you to get in their mind space. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Question from you, Lav. What if you have a comprehensive music library with several genres and styles specifically meant to entice industry folks of all calibers? What do you do with like a whole, that also applies to an artist that I'm working with from New Orleans right now. They're building a whole library and they're not sure, you know, once it's built, what are they going to do with it?
Yeah, that's, you know, the biggest thing in this entire industry is relationships, right? So it's cultivating relationships. It's, you know, like I said, my background is in film production, and I've worked for a lot of people that are very big names in the industry. And so a lot of what Music Gorilla was developed from were my relationships, my personal relationships. And that's the thing. So when you have a music library, you need to be spending as much time, if not more, cultivating relationships with music supervisors as you are getting music for that library, because it's the relationships that are going to help you place music.
Right. That's called working on your business and not in your business, right? So it's funny. My clients in New Orleans, they're very introverted, and they're just like, their heads are down making music, which is amazing, but that's going to be the part that's going to be the challenge, right? It's like, okay, how do we start connecting the dots? Kim also asks, is SoundCloud still relevant to music supervisors? How are they finding music?
Music supervisors, you know, the whole industry is sort of opened up, right? With SoundCloud, with YouTube, I mean, it's just completely opened up in terms of people's ability to find music. It's just everywhere. Mm-hmm. So sure, I think SoundCloud is definitely a resource, but I also think that it gets difficult to go through that amount of material. So unless they're very specific about what they're looking for, unless they know a specific artist that they want to hear, if they have new material out, things like that, nobody wants to look for that needle in a haystack. So I think where, you know, a music supervisor can come to a company like us and say, okay, I can't deal with this. So this is what I need. This is how much the budget is. This is when I need it. Let me know what you've got. And then we can put it out as a submission to our clients. And we can actually, in some cases, we pre-screen the music before the music supervisor gets it, so that we can, what they're asking for is what they're getting and things like that. And and then that way they have a smaller group to select music from. But there are, there's no limit to where a music supervisor can find music these days, because it's but it's
right
now. What do you use,
Right. I would add to that too, that just putting it on SoundCloud or just putting it on Spotify or just putting it on Apple Music, that is not going to get, you have to then find the person and point them directly to that link.
Right. They're not
but yes, I mean, as far as SoundCloud, obviously you don't have to log into SoundCloud. That's why, and the embed codes are very easy for anyone to use, which is why it's still the preferred method for music blogs. People don't have to log in, and you never want to make anyone do an extra step. You want them to go straight to the page, press play, and they're good to go. Annie has a question. Do you think it's enough if we've done tons of research, then we send an email as a first try to get the attention of a music supervisor?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you've done all that research and you're like, I know this song is exactly their style, exactly what they use for blah, 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 then sure, send an email introducing yourself, but don't send MP3s. Don't attach things to emails. Don't, just make it short and introduce yourself and say, this particular track is really appropriate for this particular project, not just general, not just like, I feel like you would like this song, but I know that you are the music supervisor to keep our theme going here for Grey's Anatomy, and I feel like this song, what you do for me, is perfect for it. That's and brief, to the point, move on, check in, 10 days later or so.
Right. So the answer is, yeah, I totally agree with that. I think a warm intro, and again, for those of you that are not in my free publicity course, get in it. I'm teaching all the deep dive of all of this. A warm intro will literally get you almost anywhere. One of my dearest friends in the industry, actually two of my dearest friends for years and years and years, started with a cold call. They knew who they were calling. They researched. They picked up the phone and said, hey, could I have 2 minutes of your time? And they did it with such respect that we became best friends. So this is totally possible. And look, no one gets into any business because they don't want relationships with other people. You have to remember that. Like, especially anyone around musicians, we love artists and musicians. That's why we chose this, really hard ass career of banging a hammer on our thumbs to be surrounded by independent artists. So understand that music supervisors are into listening to music. They're hired for their ears. So you just have to understand how to communicate and be respectful. And absolutely, I think that is incredible advice. Just know your audience.
Really important.
And Amy also said, or is it better to try to build a connection with them via social media? I'm going to take this one. Yes. Social media is also a way of saying, I care about you. When you're trying to get anyone's attention, when you're trying, I always hate when artists say to me, like, I don't want to follow all those people. No, what do you mean? Like, that is the whole point of this two-way conversation that we're having. You're not Moses from the mountain. You need them just as much as they need you. So yes, follow music supervisors on all social channels. If you're not getting through via email, send a respectful DM. Don't keep, hitting them up though. You'll become annoying pretty fast. But I would say build on social media, provide nice feedback or comments if they post something. Don't just post, hey, check me out. Post something really thoughtful. Two-way conversation. Be courteous, and that will help. John Sierra Jr. has a question. This kind of goes back to what we talked about at the top of this interview. Here's a question on the recording quality. For more roots-based artists who are not making electronic music, how does the home studio fare for submitting recordings?
I think it really depends. I mean, I've heard stuff that was recorded at home that sounds amazing. And then I've heard stuff that was recorded at home that sounds like it was recorded with like a cassette player in a bathroom, you know? So it really depends. I mean, you guys know, this is where I think that the artists really, you guys have an edge. Like, you know what sounds good. You do. You know, it doesn't have to sound, it can still be a roots sound. It doesn't have to be, you know, not everything has to be done electronically, because I'm big on instruments. But you guys know what it should sound like and what it does sound like, and you can differentiate between that has a really good sound and something that is not recorded in a high enough quality for broadcast.
Okay, great. Someone's doing research on Music Gorilla. Is it better to do the monthly subscription to Music Gorilla or the yearly subscription? Is it just the convenience of payment, or is there a advantage?
Well, the advantage to the yearly subscription is it's a little bit cheaper. Paid the monthly for a year. And what I tell people as far as comparing the free membership to the pro membership is that if you plan on submitting more than 4 or 5 projects a month, it behooves you financially to select the monthly membership.
Okay.
Or the, you know what I mean? You know, if the submission is $20 for a submission, you're submitting to 5 of them, obviously the pro membership is smarter.
Great. Hi, Irinka, good to see you. Sorry, I came in late. I have a song that people tell me would be great for a Bond movie. Should I try to pitch it only to some similar big productions, or just place it in any production that's indie?
So I think it depends where you are in your career. But to me, in my mind, placement is great, even if it's, you know, a short film that is doing the festival circuit. You know, you are trying to build your resume the same way that indie filmmakers are trying to build their resumes. And so in my opinion, you know, you don't want to just go for these massive productions, because sometimes an indie film is going to be much more accessible. And also, you know, you have placement. It's placement. It's legitimate. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
And we are at the end of this Instagram Live. They're going to cut us off. Thank you so much for your incredible insight. This is Alexia from Music Gorilla. You can go to musicgorilla.com. If you have any other burning questions, you can DM me and I will send them over to Alexia. She might be kind enough to answer 1 or 2. Thank you so much for your time and your expertise today. For those of you who are interested in the Cyber PR free music publicity lab, come on over to cyberprmusic.com, join me, and I will be here every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Kayla Coughlin from my team every Wednesday at 5:30 Eastern. We have a badass lineup of incredible artists. You can find out all about who's coming next. Eli Lev is Tuesday. Kayla's got some great people as well at cyberprmusic.com. Thank you so much, Alexia.
For having me.
Have a great day, everybody.
You too. Bye-bye.